Let's make a custom graduation cap. First order of business, we got to get this art drawn up. So the first thing that I really want to do is kind of give us an idea of where we're going to put our borders at. So very lightly, I'm marking with my stylus. For this piece, our homegirl wanted cactuses and some floral and also some cowhide. So we're gonna kind of basically imagine this top portion kind of as like unusable for our design because cowhide's gonna go up there, which gives us a nice, frame right here to work with. I wanna do one cactus in particular that comes out, that kind of comes up and kind of caps this border in. I don't know why I'm having such a strong feeling about this particular cactus over here. Also too, if we do these like tall, long cactus, we can actually have some fun with some of the floral that we're gonna draw, which is what I plan to do. I think I wanna put a flower here in this corner, and that way the cactus can kind of come out from behind. That way we don't have just 3 cactuses randomly starting, from this border we have going. I already wanna kind of shift this cactus here. I'm already not liking how symmetrical it's starting to look. Like a prickly pear right there. And then for this other cactus, I do want to have it kind of shifted to the one side. I don't want it to mirror this side perfectly. And I might even make it a little bit shorter. Kind of digging that, to be honest. We'll do another cactus here. See, now the hard part with doing like cactuses or things that are giant, it leaves you with like kind of funky spaces to work with. Like I don't have a ton of places to put like any kind of sprawling floral, so that's gonna definitely be my biggest battle for this thing for sure. I do want a vine to come in, and I also want to get the vine work to play with the cactus some too. I don't want it to just kind of fill in space and just kind of be like 2 separate ideas. I want this thing to interact. For example, like this cactus is going to, let me draw the rest of the vine though real quick. Okay, so this loop makes sense. So what we're gonna make it do is the ball of this swirl is going to be on top, but it's going to come behind the cactus like so and loop and grab it like that. And now I just need to figure out how I want it to interact with the arms. Yeah, that's gonna look so sick. And another hard thing about this piece in particular is that the customer also wanted like a couple flowers in there, which is always super hard when you're doing these inlay pieces, because when you mix the inlay stuff with other like objects like cactuses or other things, it definitely can get tricky. She did explicitly say she liked the flowers and wanted flowers, so I gotta at least give her 3 flowers. I mean, I guess technically we gave her like 5 flowers. So I feel confident that we checked that box for her. All right, so here we got our drawing. I'm pretty psyched with how it turned out. So what we're gonna do next is take our trusty swivel knife here and carve this bad boy. First thing we gotta do when we go to swivel knife, we have to erase a good portion of our drawing. And we do that because now I can actually see my carves a little bit better. When the pencil is on there super dark, it's really hard to see what you're doing and what you're carving and what's pencil markings and all that stuff. So I always erase a good portion of it off like this. Now it kind of looks like a pattern or a stencil more than, you know, a pencil drawing. Oh yeah. Man, I love when I sharpen my swivel knives, but like, you don't necessarily want to sharpen your swivel knife every single time you pick it up, but I think I'm at the point now where cutting with a fresh swivel knife is kind of worth it. Yeah, this thing's gonna be so sick. I'm really excited for this one. I am done with the carving. I hit a little bit of a wall, I'm not gonna lie. I need some more caffeine, but the show must go on. So we're gonna start tapping away on this thing. Let's get to it. We're gonna basically try and take the most pronounced objects that are the most in the foreground of this design. Every piece of floral has tons and tons of different layers. This flower is, you know, on top, technically sitting on top of the cactus, and, you know, all these cactuses and all these vines coming out. So this is gonna be one of those things that sits the farthest up in the foreground of the design. Same with this this flower over here, this flower here, and this flower here. Basically, tooling is a form of sculpture in a way. It's weird. It's almost like a two-dimensional sculpture, which is really strange because we don't really get to work with like the sides per se, or like we really get to work in this three-dimensional space. It's kind of a mixture of sculpture and collage, the way that it works, because collage can also be sculpture and adding layers and working with dimension on a flat surface. That's basically what we're doing here. Okay, so we got it beveled, which is gonna give us our, you know, kind of give us our first layer of dimension here. Now we're gonna move into our next step of the tooling process, which is adding texture. I normally add my textures with these pear shader tools and this scallop tool. This is a scallop tool from the 70s. This is like a craft tool throwback. I love this thing. But first we're gonna start with these pear shaders. And you can see that makes this flower just a little bit more interesting to look at. That's basically what we're gonna do to the rest of the piece. The vines, the flowers, all that good stuff. Now we're gonna hit it with the scallop tool. Now we're gonna give our flowers some centers. Okay, so normally I would be backgrounding this piece, but on this one, because we're gonna do this inlay, it would literally be absolute waste of time to do the background. So we're gonna leave the background as it is, and then we're gonna move on to our final step, which is when we bring the swivel knife back out, we do decorative cuts on the floral, as well as giving some of these cactuses some little prickly stabbers. On my cactuses, I normally run this, they call this like a hair tool. Basically, there's a bunch of little blades and it kind of makes this texture. I like using this on my cactuses because it gives the illusion of being like, you know, covered in prickly thorns. So what we do is just do these kind of like short little jagged strokes. And this kind of gives us a cool texture that looks really good on cactuses. You're probably not gonna see it pick up on the camera. Once we get this thing stained and finished, you'll definitely see this texture in effect. Now we're gonna come back and give our cactuses some pricklies. We're killing it. We are absolutely killing it. So our next move is to get some color on this thing. We're gonna start by hitting our border, and we're gonna do that black. We're gonna start out with this kind of turquoise aqua color and start painting these cactus. Now we just need to let this dry. We are officially on to the staining process. We're gonna start out by hitting it with a little bit of oil. This particular piece, we don't wanna put too much oil on it. The customer wanted it pretty light. So the more oil, you know, the darker it's gonna be. Now this is a super, super important part of a project like this that's gonna get inlaid, is this resist coat we put on. This is this helps resist some of the stain, hence why it's called a resist coat or a resist product. This is basically gonna dry and kind of create a barrier so that when I go to, you know, hit it with some stain, let's just say I use a, you know, a dark brown or even like a super dark brown or black, it's not actually gonna turn the leather, you know, fully that color because there's this layer of resist coat. I use Resolene. The reason why it's so important on this one and we have to coat it on super thick is because when we go to remove the background, we kind of end up handling it a lot. And we can damage the resist coat if we don't put it on really, really well. Most people struggle with putting enough on in the first place. And then you kind of add this whole inlay debacle on top of it. Things get real dicey because we've already done all this work. The last thing we want to do is when we go to put stain on it, this thing turns out too dark. Now we're gonna lightly dab it off. Now we're gonna let this chill out for a minute, let that finish drying and soaking up all that Resolene in there. In order to do these inlays, there's a couple ways about you can go about removing the background pieces. For me, what I've found always works the best is using these chisel tools. And you can see, you know, some of them are like long flat ones, some are like round. And there we go. This little chunk that we just removed right there. And that's what we're gonna do to the rest of this thing. Here's what we got so far. This thing is turning out super cool. I'm really excited to get some stain on this for sure. We're gonna take it over to the other bench and keep this train rolling. The way that we gotta get down in the cracks and make sure that we get good coverage on the sides. I like to use this EcoFlow, just a much runnier stain. Wish me luck that I don't ruin these. Let's see what we got. Damn, son, where'd you find this? I'm really happy with how this turned out. It is smooth sailing from here, boys. All right, we gotta let this dry, and then we can throw this thing on top of some hide. What we're gonna do is we're going to glue this down to about right here. This glue is super convenient in this kind of like applicator, because you can just kind of really make sure you run, you know, a bead, and you can make sure every single vine has some kind of glue contact. Moment of truth. I mean, that is a good looking graduation cap right there. This thing is rad. What's up, buddy? Okay, now that we got it sewn together, gotta trim these threads. Now we gotta trim off the excess hide around the edges. This is where things get messy. The little hairs get everywhere. And we're gonna dress the edges. We gotta let those edges dry. Then we're gonna slick them down, and pretty much done here. All right, so there it is. This thing turned out super sick. I'm gonna go get some photos of it and video in the sun. I mean, it was honestly, this thing was a blast. This was really cool. I really liked not having to do a bunch of letters and a bunch of craziness, and we just got to do something relatively simple and go crazy with it, if that made any sense. But yeah, it's really simple. I mean, just cowhide, floral, and cactuses. You know, you don't need to have 19,000 things to, you know, make it cool and unique. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Hit the like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Here's some nice footage of it.